What is up, guys? Today we are breaking down this upcoming UFC fight card, Yadong versus Simon. I'm giving you my top 4 picks that's going to help you win your Reignmaker contest. Let's get it. All right, guys, like always, when I'm breaking down the cards, I like to look at the slate in its entirety. Again, these numbers are from stochastic.com. I cannot stress enough how important it is to have some sort of premium subscription, whether it be Stochastic, RotoGrinder, RotoWire, there's all kinds of them. I personally use stochastic.com. Okay, so getting into it, there are 3 variables I like to look at when I'm choosing my fighters. This is the way I gauge my strategy. Number 1 variable I like to look at is how many fights are in this fight card. I draw the line at 13 fights. I feel like that's a medium sized fight card. Anything above that's a big fight card. Anything below that's a small fight card. Here we have 11 fights. That's considered a small fight card. That's important because that gives you the probability of how high the winning lineup is going to be. The more fights that are available, the more chances a fighter could score more than 100 points, thus getting a higher overall score for that winning lineup. In this case, we don't have as many fighters available to be scoring more than 100. Therefore, this points to more of a low scoring winning lineup. Second variable is the ITD lines / wrestlers, because as we all know, the points come from finishing fights, preferably in the first round, as well as wrestlers. We do know wrestlers also score a lot of points, so we want to know if that's plentiful in our fight card. And in this case, the inside the distance is pretty good. It's pretty high with only 2 fights predicted to go to decision. And we have a good amount of wrestlers. We have 5 wrestlers, which is pretty decent. So that contradicts our first variable that says it's going to be a low scoring night. This is telling us it's going to be a high scoring night. So the strategy we formulate here is we're going to have a balance between picking fighters with high ceilings, taking our shots, but also getting fighters with a safe floor here. Lastly, the last thing I like to look at, and this doesn't really have anything much to do with how high the winning lineup is going to score, but where we're going to select our fighters. In this case, the variable I like to look at is how many moderate to heavy favorites there are. That's a 2-to-1 or greater favorite. And in this case, we only have 3 fighters that are 2-to-1 favorite and higher, with Vieira, Egger, and Borallo. So that what this is saying is there's many live underdogs in this fight card. So especially for Reignmakers, we can really take our shots with these underdogs because in these sort of fight cards, the underdogs do tend to come through. And as we all know, underdogs do go cheaper in the marketplace in Reignmakers. So the strategy here, considering that, is we're going to play volume. We're going to play multiple lineups. We're going to play as many lineups as we're comfortable with our bankroll. And we're going to target this area. We're going to heavily target this area because we can get great value here. And as we know, the name of the game here is being efficient with our money. So to summarize this breakdown of the fight card here, our strategy is going to be have a balance of high ceiling, high risk fighters with safe floors, low risk fighters, a mixture of those two, and going heavy with the underdogs, allowing us to create volume lineups, multiple lineups. So now, it hurt my elbow. Now that we got all that out of the way, top 4 picks here. Number 1 and number 2, it's kind of, look, I'm not predicting who's going to win. I'm just picking fighters that fit the mold of our strategy here. I'm looking at the fight card. This is the way we are methodically attacking this game here. This is not a betting show. We're not trying to pick who wins the fight. looking at picking fighters again put us in the best position to be efficient with our money. I know that was a mouthful, but I got it out there. I'm learning the language of English finally. So the first pick and the second pick are they're fighting each other. So like I just said, I'm not picking winners here. I'm not trying to predict winners, nor do I think that's an effective strategy when you're playing DFS. That's more of an effective strategy with betting. Even then, I'm not too much into the betting side, but even then, I'm not going to get into that because that's not in my realm of expertise. So, number one is Ricky Simon and Song Yadong. I believe it is crucial to have one of the two guys in your lineups with the main event. When there's a small number of fights, the main event is weighed heavier because there's when you're fading the main event, you're you're leaning on the fact that other fights are going to score higher than the main event. The fact that we have less fights here to bank on scoring more than the main event is making it hard for us to fade the main event, especially this fight where chances are it's gonna go 5 rounds. We really want to have either side of the main event in our lineups. So it comes down to what type of fighter do you want to have in your lineup, right? Because these are two different fighters as far as high ceiling and safe floor. So you're constructing your lineup and you have a bunch of safe floors. Now you want to throw in take your shot with the high ceiling fight. You would go with somebody like Ricky Simon. He's more of a high volatility. As you can see here, Song Yodong has a 38% chance of finishing him inside the distance. So that's about more than 10% greater than Ricky Simon, which is at 27%. And Ricky Simon has not fought in a 5 round main event. So we're still a little iffy on that. He still hasn't been tested in that regards. Whereas Song Yodong just went through to war and did very well with Corey Sandhagen, and that fight aged very well because, as we all know, Corey Sandhagen is an elite fighter in that division. So Ricky Simon's still improving. There's still a lot of question marks, but he has that wrestling upside. And if you look at his previous fights, his last 5 fights, he's basically scored 100 points or more, and didn't rely on the finish. So he has a decision win at 98 points and another decision win at 107. If you look at those takedowns, those glorious, glorious takedowns, 2, 2, 6, 7, 7. That's ridiculous. And imagine in a fight, uh, 5 round fight, he can really blow up the card. High ceiling, you're taking your shot, but he's unproven, and Song Yadong can throw some mother effing bombs. So you put him in if you're looking for that high upside play. Now, say you took in a couple of shots in your lineup and you still got that main event. Who do you want to pick? Yadong or Simon, and you're looking for that safe floor? You go with Yadong. The most likely, Simon is not going to finish Yadong. The numbers say 27% inside the distance for Simon. And so if Yadong goes all 5 rounds, that's a pretty safe floor. Anytime the main event goes 5 rounds, even if the fighter loses, it's usually a pretty decent floor. If he wins, it's about average. Yadong is a striker, so strikers tend to score less than wrestlers, but this fight seems to be like it's going to be a high-paced fight. Ricky Simon does fight at a high pace, so we can see another type of war as Yadong did with Sandhagen, with Yadong scoring high volume punches, maybe a knockdown, maybe a knockout, but at the very least a 5 decision loss, which is not going to break your lineup. You'll play somewhere if you're getting a 5 round decision loss. It's a decent loss. It's not too bad. It's not the end of the world. If that's your only loss, you'll most likely still cash your lineups. Okay, so for our third pick, we're looking for fighters that have a high ceiling, somebody who's going to score pretty high, preferably put him in our captain spot and double down on this guy. He's going to be a safe fighter. He is a moderate to heavy fighter. Can you guess who he is? He is a wrestler. His name starts with an R. His last name starts with a V. Rodolfo Vieira. I like this dude because, first of all, he gives you a safe win percentage at 70%. And he is the highest inside the distance percentage fighter at 61.54%. He does have that wrestling upside. He's fighting Cody Brundage, as we all know, also has wrestling upside, but Vieira is a grappler. He's a submission specialist. So I don't know if Brundage is going to want to take that dude down. And if he does, you got to be very careful with the submission. And which gives us Vieira another reason to pick him, to love him, is that submission upside. Those submissions upsides are great for daily fantasy because, or in this case, Reignmakers, which is the same as daily fantasy, score is the same. Because they're always live. They're always live. They're always live to throw that sneaky submission and end the fight in a moment. And that's why I like Vieira for that high ceiling pick. All right, so my fourth and final pick, as I said, I like the underdogs here. So I have to include an underdog. I'm going to be playing multiple underdogs, but this is one of the favorite underdog for this particular reason. I want a safe floor here. I told you guys, mix in those high ceiling fighters with the safe floor fighters. So I want to throw in another one here. He does have wrestling upside. He is fighting a fighter who's pretty inconsistent, if you ask me. It's frustrating at times. Sometimes he seems like a genius when he's fighting. Sometimes he seems like, what the hell are you doing? I'm referring to the guys, I'm picking his opponent. That's who I'm referring to. Cody Durden, I like him as my fourth pick, as my safe floor here. He has that wrestling upside. His fight is one of the 2 fights that's predicted to go to decision. So even if he loses, he will have a decent a loss point, decent points in a loss. And Charles Johnson, he's pretty inconsistent here. He has one of the lowest inside the distance as a fighter amongst the favorites, so that's why I like Durden as the underdog, as a safe floor. And the wrestling is just that cherry on top for Durden. So those are my top 4 picks. To wrap it up real quick, strategy here: build volume, build multiple lineups, because you have a lot of underdogs to pick from, a lot of cheaper fighters to pick from. So it gives you a lot more capital to spend. Of course, stay within your bankroll. Bankroll management, right? That's a big thing. As far as the structure of our lineups, we're mixing in high ceiling fighters with safe floor fighters. I am done.